Welcome, everybody. We are at the top of the hour, and we'll give the Zoom queue about 1 minute, 90 seconds or so, 60, 90 seconds before we get started. So just sit tight. All right, I'd say we're at about a critical mass. Folks are slowing down. The trickling is slowing down. So, yeah, let's kick off, get this show started. Welcome, everybody. David Valancourt here, founder and CEO of the GMP Collective. Super excited to have our panelist here today and my fearless leader here at the GMP Collective, Bethany Moore, our Director of Content Strategy and Market Growth. And today is our 22nd episode of the When Things Go Wrong series. I can't believe we're so far into double digits. This is really exciting. We've got a great topic and lineup today, which I will let Bethany discuss. But first things, I just want to go over some housekeeping. So first, this webinar is recorded, as all of us are. This is for you all as audience members, as industry stakeholders. So please, if you aren't able to make it, friends and family, colleagues that were not able to make it, let them know it'll be available on demand afterwards. So look for that link. We usually send the email out no later than Monday or Tuesday. Next week's, of course, the 4th of July holiday. So don't forget to prioritize looking for our follow-up recap email with a link to watch this. This and all of our episodes are available on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. So it is easily Googleable and accessible. Q&A. Again, as I said at the beginning, this is for you all. So we had over 20 questions come in during the registration process. So thank you all for those that submitted questions. We have done our best to incorporate them and we'll continue to plant and seed them throughout this 1 hour, but 1 hour goes quickly. That said, if during the discussion something gets sparked that you want to ask, use the Q&A feature. There's the option to submit it anonymously or as yourself, and we will do our best to get to it. If not, we will again do our best, no promises, but we'll follow up with our email with a summary of responses to any questions that were asked. So with that, we've got 56 minutes to go. Bethany, over to you. Take us away. Oh, you're muted, Bethany.
Thank you. Great. Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to be your moderator of the When Things Go Wrong webinar series to discuss various challenges and issues within the cannabis industry with the aim of offering valuable insight, tips, and solutions. As David mentioned, I'm Director of Content Strategy and Market Growth at the GMP Collective. Feel free to reach out to us to learn more about our services, including technical and strategic advising, client referral, and webinar sponsorship opportunities. So let's get started. You all know David Valancourt, CEO of the GMP Collective, co-founder of the S3 Collective, and vice chair of the ASTM International D37 Committee on Cannabis. Our guests today, we have 3 guests, 3 leadership from hemp organizations. Erica Stark joins us from the National Hemp Association. She's a highly committed and knowledgeable hemp professional who's dedicated herself to the growth and development of the industry. as Executive Director of National Hemp Association since 2017. She's become a trusted voice for policymakers and industry leaders. She was honored to be invited to testify at a U.S. Senate Ag Committee hearing in 2019. Her hemp industry service is traced back to her grassroots advocacy work in 2014, going on to become founding member of the Pennsylvania Hemp Industry Council, serving as both secretary and executive director. There, she was part of a small team that pushed through the hemp legislation in Pennsylvania with a unanimous vote in a single session. In 2023, she's elected chairwoman of that organization and serves on the PA Pennsylvania Hemp Steering Committee and Advisory Council to the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Thank you for joining us today, Erica.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we have Ray Kaderli from the U.S. Hemp Building Association. Ray is involved in several leadership roles in the industry, including serving as president of the U.S. Hemp Building Association, collaboration efforts with trade groups and universities, lobbying legislative influences on the industry, and connecting with leaders internationally. He's the founder of 2 companies active in building homes utilizing hemp as a primary building material, and co-founder of a school that supports the design, planning, and completion of successful projects. The first company is Hemp Build Network, LLC. The focus of that company is to make building with hemp possible. The second company is Triple P Fund, which is an investment fund that invests with purpose, including connecting capital with creativity as a real estate investment of building houses with hemp. He's also the founder of a school called the Hemp Build School that supports the design, planning, and completion of successful projects. Thanks for joining us today, Ray.
Happy to be here.
And finally, we have Jonathan Miller from the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. There are a few individuals who have been more influential in the development of the U.S. hemp industry than General Counsel Jonathan Miller. Upon helping to found the Roundtable and its sister organization, the U.S. Hemp Authority, Jonathan has served as the industry's leading advocate for hemp and CBD legislation on the ground in Congress and in dozens of state legislatures. A recovering politician, the Democrat was elected twice as Kentucky's state treasurer. Jonathan has worked across the aisle with leading hemp champions, such as U.S. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, on critical legislation, including the 2014 and 2018 farm bills. He now spends his time working with Congress, the White House, USDA, FDA, and DEA to promote policies that advance the industry. Thank you for joining us today, Jonathan.
For having me.
All right, without further ado, let's dive into these questions. Let's start with the wide view of an overview of your association and its primary focus within the hemp industry. And let's add on to that while you're talking how you see the hemp industry has evolved over the past few years from your perspective. What is it? What is it not? Erica, would you kick us off, please?
Well, thank you. So the National Hemp Association is a grassroots trade association. We are actually celebrating our 10th year this year, and I've been there for 7 of those 10 years. We have been strong advocates, for all parts of the plant, but for the last probably 2.5, 3 years, we've been extremely focused on the Industrial Hemp Act of 2023. Which is language that would bifurcate industrial hemp by definition away from cannabinoid hemp. And it's been a lot of work, but we did get it introduced as a standalone bill, both in the Senate and in the House. And while the language is not directly in the Farm Bill, the key components of it have made its way into the base bill of the House version of the Farm Bill. So we're super happy about that. the industry and where it is and where it's been, and it's been a roller coaster for sure. I think I was extremely naive when I thought that when the 2018 Farm Bill passed and we got full federal legalization, that life was going to get easier. But no, that's been the farthest thing from the truth. It's has still so much potential, but it still has a lot of problems. Obviously, as we can see, we had the big bust in 2019 where, the market kind of plummeted and acres have not recovered since then, but we're slowly starting to see things coming back. And I'm really hopeful that when we get the next farm bill passed and we do get the bifurcation for industrial hemp, that we will start to see acreage climb dramatically. As important as the cannabinoid market is, and I don't want to diminish that in any way, it's super important and super valuable. Industrial hemp, hemp purpose grown for fiber and grain is where we're going to see, millions of acres being grown for a vast, wide variety of purposes. And in order to get regulations for that to be as close to regular agriculture as possible, we need this bifurcation.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that intro there, Erica. Moving to Jonathan, same question, overview, and how what you've been seeing the last few years.
Sure. The U.S. Hemp Roundtable has been around a little over a decade in one form or another. Our focus initially was to secure hemp's legalization, first of all through pilot programs in 2014, and then more recently 2018 in full legalization of the crop. As Erica mentioned, 2019 following was a huge year, but unfortunately, the FDA never lived up to its promise that it was going to start regulating hemp products, particularly hemp extract products, which has caused great disruption of the industry and has really rewarded the bad guys who will produce products that don't have enough quality assurance to them and are sometimes targeted to minors and hurt the good guys who follow all GMP and other types of important safety precautions. Also, due to the lack of regulation of CBD, there has been a huge growth in what we call potentially impairing cannabinoids, adult cannabinoids. And this has taken over the hemp extract market and has led to a $28 billion industry. Most of these products that are being sold are produced safely and are enjoyed and appreciated for their health and wellness aspects by adults. Unfortunately, there's been some bad apples that have manufactured things poorly and worse, have targeted them to children. Those bad apples have been getting the press coverage and has led to a bit of a backlash in Congress, where we've seen legislation recently introduced that would not only ban adult cannabinoids, but would wreak havoc for the rest of the industry as well. And so we have gone from really focusing our attention on regulating to both focusing on regulating and trying to beat back efforts to launch back to prohibition, where there would be a big backward step, which has never happened in a farm bill before. So I'm sure we'll talk about these more in detail, but that's the battle line we have right now.
Yeah. Thanks for laying that out, Jonathan. Ray, over to you with the U.S. Hemp Building Association. What's going on in your world?
Well, the U.S. Hemp Building Association is a trade association, and what we do is we advocate for materials and methods of construction and building. That's our hyper focus using industrial hemp. Now, that does include cannabinoid byproducts, but it's mainly focused on the fiber grain. And so as things mature in one, it will help the other. And so as we have things coming forward, and it's blue oceans of opportunity. And how I describe it is that it's like we just discovered trees, and you can imagine all the things that we would figure out how to do with it. And so there's a lot of going on. And then I describe it as chaos going to controlled chaos, going to something that is more streamlined, and then those opportunities will come to fruition. But there's a lot of momentum, and things are becoming real, and supply chains are maturing, and so we're enjoying that. But it is something to go into with realistic expectations, and we can help people map those out because things are very realistic right now.
Great, thank you for that. So let's move along here. We see that there's some specific use cases for this product, starting with the fact that cannabinoids exist, as we've mentioned, and they will technically exist in hemp flooring material, for example. But hemp flooring is not consumable, not really a good source of vitamins and minerals in our daily diet. So how do we navigate that? Ray, back to you.
Yeah, it's just what's your exposure? If you're going to consume something and eat it, your exposure is that you're eating it and you're digesting it. If you're going to be walking on it, you need to know more about is it slippery and that type of exposure. If there is something that is dusty and it's airborne, well, then now you need to know about that type of exposure. So what we're doing is as these products and these methods of construction are coming in and or coming into the marketplace, it's focused on what is that exposure. Don't eat it. You don't need to worry about that exposure. And then, first of all, can it be eaten? And then, common sense is beginning to prevail a little bit now that we've settled down a little bit. And then I still enjoy the Scooby and Shaggy type of reference of what happens if the house burns down. I don't mind it as much because it always lends a good productive conversation. But yeah, that starts with the house probably won't burn down because it's darn near fireproof.
Very cool. Thank you for that, Ray. Jonathan.
What's your specific question for me?
Separating out each group's specific use cases with the understanding that cannabinoids exist, but the application in hemp flooring or fiber and grain and the various uses to bifurcation of how the product can be utilized.
Sure. No, I think the effort to bifurcate the fiber and grain side from the extracts is important. I think it will help lead to growth parts of the industry. But again, as I mentioned, sort of in my opening comments, we're at a point where we have some real challenges in terms of the viability of the industry at all if Congress continues to act in its current direction.
Mm-hmm. And Erica, same question to you.
It's important for everybody to acknowledge that when it comes to fiber and grain, it has always been legal. It has always been exempted from the Controlled Substances Act. It is really just the cultivation of it that was banned and has led to kind of the situation where we're at now. So, and this is also part of kind of the problem with some of the current amendments that are happening is that they're trying to fix a problem with something that's manufactured by redefining the definition for cultivation. They're two different things, right? Like none of the products that are, considered problematic by some people are coming straight from the farm, right? They're all being manufactured post-harvest. So by doing things like redefining the definition of hemp, as Jonathan said, would hurt the entire industry and not really solve the problem that I use the word problem loosely, the situation that they're trying to address. So for building products, no problem at all. The fibers that are used in hemp wood and textiles and bioplastics, they're perfectly legal, always have been. And then when it comes to grain, as soon as it became federally legal, and even before then, you've been able to buy hemp hearts in your grocery stores forever. But we did get official GRAS status out of FDA pretty immediately for the hemp grain, and they have defined like parts per million for THC and CBD that are allowable in human, products. There's nothing wrong with that. We're going through the process of getting hemp grain approved for animal feed. The first approval through AFCO is expected to come in August of this year. So fiber and grain end use products are really kind of beyond question and the need for regulation, but that step between differentiating the cultivation and getting to those end products is what's problematic, and making sure that those regulations are reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'd like to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the past and current challenges faced by hemp producers and operators in these recent years. Let's talk about some specific examples of how each of your associations has addressed those challenges or is currently addressing those challenges, and the way that recent regulatory changes have impacted the hemp industry, both positively and negatively, if that exists. Jonathan, could we start with you on that one, please?
Sure. So when it comes to, again, hemp consumable products, hemp extracts, the Farm Bill conceived, the 2018 Farm Bill, excuse me, conceived that the FDA would have the jurisdiction to regulate these products. And unfortunately, as I mentioned before, they have not taken that opportunity. In fact, last year said that after studying it for 4 years, that they didn't believe they had the authority to regulate these products. And so what we've seen is states jumping into the fold, and many states have got good regimes. Others are more difficult, but in some, we are now resulting in 50 different regulatory regimes for various products. And as you can imagine, when you talk about folks that are selling products across state lines, that becomes extremely difficult to comply with. Just think about in terms of what's on a label. If we've got 50 different states that have different requirements for what's on a label, then it becomes very difficult to put together a label that meets more than one state. And sometimes states are completely contradictory. One state will say that you need to list the amount of THC that is in a product. Another state will say you can't mention any THC in your product. So it is very much a real challenge, and why we are hoping that federal legislation will result this year. And we're working with Senator Wyden in particular, who's probably going to introduce a bill in the next several weeks to provide a comprehensive federal regulatory scheme to address these issues and to provide consumer protection.
That's great. Thank you for that update. And over to Jonathan. Sorry, Ray. I apologize.
Oh yeah, no, this is a great one because we're seeing a lot of progress on it. When you start to build and you go in, I'm mostly talking about the use of industrial hemp as hempcrete or hemp lime. The manufacturing processes like hemp wood, that's pretty well dialed in on what they do and what they bring in from the agronomy side of things, from that raw agricultural crop into their process. But this is where it's coming into a job site as an ingredient, and then we're going to the processors who are connected with farmers, and then they're like, well, what do you want? And it's like, well, we want it kind of like this, this much dust or less, this much fiber or less. And they're like, that's fine. And then they'll bring you something, and then it'll be like, well, not quite that. And he goes, every time you say not quite like that, that costs me $5,000-$10,000 to go tweak my machines. Now I'm happy to do it, from the viewpoint of a processor, but we need to know what we're doing. And so one thing the trade association has done is connected with ASTM on having some measurement standards or measurement methods to where then we can create standards. And so the standards can have ranges of dust, ranges of fiber, ranges of size, all of those things, but we're all measuring with the same scale. And so that's something that's very exciting. And the D3707 committee has done made great strides in having that. And there's actually some things that are coming up to be passed on that. Now, what that'll do in joining the two industries that are fiber grain versus cannabinoid, when we create a set of standards and measurements over here on the fiber grain side, if you are producing for cannabinoids and now you need to know what to do with all these stems and stalks, you can take your stems and stalks, and if it'll play over here, then we're happy to take it. But that gives us that medium to connect, and either it is or it isn't, and then we can go forward with that. And then testing will also run that through whether it's a good fit or not. Because, I know that the cannabinoid producers don't want to put something out there that's not going to be a good product. And then as we have those testing methods, then those are going to be something that we'll be able to show.
Great, thanks for that. And Erica.
Yeah, I agree. The patchwork of regulation state to state is extremely problematic. And it's one of the things that I think we all hope that when the 2018 Farm Bill passed, that we were going to get past that finally we were going to have this unified set of rules for everybody to play under. I am a little bit more sympathetic to the FDA's plight in regulating these things. Simply because it's not just CBD, it's literally every cannabinoid, and even the ones that haven't even hit the market yet. And they need to have, and then you throw in the CW Pharmaceuticals issue that makes it even more complicated, and the fact that these cannabinoids exist both in hemp and marijuana. So the cannabinoid and the end product needs to be regulated, at least to my mind, regardless of the source material. It's what is in the end product that's getting to the consumer that needs to be controlled. And the Farm Bill is not really the method to do that, because there's not really another example other than perhaps meat that the USDA is expected to regulate an end product that's hitting the shelves. So it's a mess. And yes, Congress needs to do something. They need to give the FDA the framework that they need to do this once and for all, and correctly and finally, and give everybody a standard set of rules. That said, what we've been doing is, like I said, kind of focusing on the fiber and grain side and getting that bifurcation, because we've seen the confusion hindering investment into supply chains for, hemp wood, hemp lime, bioplastics, and those types of investments have to happen if we're ever going to get to scalability where we're price competitive with other less sustainable options. So there's plenty of work to do, but it's worth doing to protect this industry that has so much promise to help not only farmers but consumers and the planet, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone. David, I believe you wanted to jump in here.
Yeah, so this has been great, guys. And as folks see me like looking in different directions, there are just so many questions coming in. So I'm trying to triage them and bring them up. So I've summarized one here. I want to start off. I'm going to go Jonathan with a question, then I'll follow up with Ray and Erica. So, Jonathan, I think a good example, you mentioned the bad actors earlier, and that's definitely, without a doubt, like pick your news source where you see stories of products not meeting specifications, consumer injuries, et cetera. So you guys have had the U.S. Hemp Authority's certification program around for a while, and the GMP Collective here, myself as the vice chair, are really active in leading the development of voluntary consensus standards through ASTM International. Despite this, we still have the bad guys, a lot of bad guys, without quality assurance persisting. And so with states trying to fill this gap in the FDA oversight, as you mentioned, we have issues with, for example, labeling. So how do we fix that, right? What I really want to understand is your perspective on the fact that consumers need to be able to identify the good actors in the hemp space. So how do we fix that beyond what we're doing already?
Well, first of all, the necessary fix is the FDA needs to act, and they have been delaying for too much time, and have now kind of kicked the ball over to Congress, and we're just hopeful that Congress will take that next step. And again, as I mentioned earlier, Senator Wyden is working on some legislation that would do just that and provide for a comprehensive regulatory structure. But in the meantime, we are an industry that holds itself to a higher standard, and we have self-regulation. The U.S. Hemp Authority has been in place for about 6 years. We certify products that and farm products as well that meet a very extensive quality standards that have been developed by the industry over a 5-year period. If you live up to those standards, you are able to put a seal, a certification on your product, and so to indicate to the public that you're one of the good guys trying to do the right thing. We just have announced that the U.S. Hemp Authority has been going to expend itself now to adult cannabinoids. So for the last several years, we've only been monitoring or certifying non-intoxicating compounds. And as this industry's grown, again, there's more bad actors in this space. And so it really is important for those people who want to sell Delta 8, who want to sell Delta 9 products, but want to do it in a responsible way and make sure there's very strict age gating so that kids can't get their hands on it, and childproof packaging, and all the safety considerations that we want to have in adult products, that they will know through that seal that consumers can purchase that. And hopefully FDA will catch up, Congress will catch up, and we'll be working arm in arm with them. But for the time being, self-regulation is a positive step forward.
Thanks, Jonathan. I think the key takeaway that I'm hearing there that I would wholeheartedly agree with is look for products that have a certification seal, a mark of trust. And of course, there's all sorts of issues out there. What do those marks look like? How do you find them? Say if you're a consumer or you have somebody that's a consumer asking, asking you as an industry expert, go to your stores and ask your stores to be carrying products that have a third-party certification seal, and not just a generic GMP certified, but something that actually resembles, it's an accredited one. It's got the U.S. Hemp Authority's mark on there. Those are the key differentiators from the rest of the products. I think that's a really good start.
Amen.
Ray, go ahead. Yes.
I said amen.
Ray, thank you. Ray, let's build on that you mentioned ASTM standards. And that's the first time I met you was at ASTM International Committee meeting. So I'm really glad to hear the continued relationship, and I keep seeing, movement. It takes a while. The standards process is slow, but can you maybe just speak briefly from your side, why these standards matter, which, ends up resulting in what Jonathan and I were just talking about from a, product certification, but you need the standards first. So give me a little bit about your perspective and why U.S. Hemp Building Association has found value in investing time in creating market relevant standards.
Oh, you bet. Great question. And then we talk about bad actors, and what a standard will do is it will enable would-be bad actors that are good actors to all be good actors because they know the script. If you give somebody the hula hoop, they jump through the hula hoop, then that everybody has the right expectation. And then if we don't know, then like say, for example, if you're growing cannabinoids and you've got stems and stalks, you process them through to a particle size, and somebody told you that was great for use in a building and construction environment, but you've never designed, built, executed, delivered an actual house project with it, you could be putting something out there that is a failure waiting to happen, and then it's a lawsuit waiting to happen, and you were doing your best. And so it gives your best some documentation. And so that's what that'll do, is so that when builders come on, because builders, I'm not going to take on a new material unless I know that I'm not going to get sued and I'm not going to get called back and I'm not going to have everything failed. And so what it does for the manufacturers, it lets them put together a consistent product that can go to that builder where they can say, look, we've done all these things, Mr. and Mrs. Builder, you can now use this product with confidence. And nobody likes my saying, but it's like we all need to be able to sue each other and nothing bad happens. And so if the builder builds doing their best, if the supplier supplies doing their best, and then things are just going to happen. All right, this is building and construction. When things happen, as long as everybody did what they knew to be best, then an insurance claim can be filed. Nobody has to go out of business. Nobody has to take anybody to court. All of those things are just remedied because we've got nice things in place to use as business professionals. And so that's what that professionalism will do. Now, the status of where this is at the ASTM, we've got to have the measurement methods first. We got to have the measurement scales and all of that. And then that's something that the manufacturers can do that are very cost friendly. This is not an expensive test, and it's something that I've seen this used on the job site that's very cost friendly there. So you can double check the supplier with the consumer, and then that's something that's really nice. Did I answer your question?
I'd say you did. No, that was great, Ray. Some of the key takeaways I picked up on, and then I'll go to Erica and kind of and try to pass it back over to Bethany. But talking about the measurements, the test methods, like we need those, and that underpins everything we've talked about today thus far, whether it's adult hemp cannabinoids, CBD, product labeling. How do you verify it without standardized test methods to verify back to what is the single source of truth? Those are things I like to talk about. There's more than one way to get to a result, but there's got to be a single established way that we can benchmark in order to be able to have other, to drive more innovation. And we really need that for consumer trust. So I'm super grateful again for your engagement there. And I think hopefully folks really learn. Go ahead.
And one more thing, what it'll do is it'll enable the cannabinoid producers to have a profit revenue center
Mhm.
from their waste stream instead of an expense. And it might be small. We know the money's in the flower and all of that, but if you're going to have to pay to get rid of your stems and stalks, but instead you can have them processed to a level where they find a nice friendly market,
Mhm.
now you've got something, and then that just checks all the check boxes for the environmental stewardship on your whole company's outlook.
I love that. That really tees up nicely the question I wanted to bring to Erica on this. Like, Erica, I know you guys folks look at more of the fiber and grain side, if I understand correctly. And there's parallels to all this. And I'm personally a one plant kind of guy as much as it's possible. I think that's, we have barriers to get there, but let's envision a world where we've got this one plant that there's cannabinoids, there's essential oils and terpenes that can go into streams, there's building materials, and then there's grain and fiber that can also be used from this plant so that we're not wasting product and just throwing it into a landfill where it sits for forever. So what are the primary challenges for the hemp fiber and grain producers in terms of the market demand and production scalability? And is there any parallels you see there around the need for these minimum standards that can allow, say performance standards that can allow for these products to exist in a marketplace in a way that they don't yet today?
Yeah, I definitely think, like first and foremost, I think what standards also serve to do is to at least give us a common language to make sure that when we're talking about something that we're all talking about the same thing. Like first and foremost. And then I also see standards as a way to help get to that scalability aspect of it, because the reality is, we have a very minimal amount of commercial scale fiber processors in the country right now. And no one of them could fulfill a large purchase order from, say, like an auto manufacturer. So in order for these processing companies to be able to put their end use products together to get to the volume that a purchase order might need, they have to be the same standard, right? Like you shouldn't be able to tell what came from where. So those are important things in building supply chains that I think standards also have. And to your point with the one plant thing, like, in a utopian kind of world, like I absolutely agree. And we will get there one day. Whether that one day is 5 years from now or, when I'm long in the ground, I don't know. But the thing is, like, it is one plant, right? And the molecules and the fibers and all of those things that come out of this plant are the same regardless of what their source material is by that arbitrary definition of a THC level. Now granted, fiber and grain varietals are very visually and structurally and agronomy different than cannabinoid producing plants, but at the end of the day, they're the same plant. So we'll get there one day.
Thanks. I will make no bones that it's a bit of a utopian view, and how we get there. Are we there today? Definitely not. But no, thanks so much for that, Erica. Sorry, back to you, Bethany. Take control.
Yep, no worries. Erica, while segueing off what you were saying, The versatility of hemp fibers and grains can contribute to sustainability, as you've mentioned. Could you briefly talk more about that potential that you see for those products in various industries?
I mean, we could spend hours just talking about that because the possibilities are endless. I know. So where to start? Like, obviously, you have your construction materials, which are going to be vastly important, not only in their environmental standpoints, but also the health benefits for the people who live in homes that are built with hemp materials. Like they're just simply superior. But the large scale cultivation of hemp in a traditional agricultural setting, in a rotation with corn or soy or wheat or other products, it also has those soil health benefits as well that you can't really put a price tag on. They make other crops that come before and after have better yields. So there's so much research happening now with hemp as a sustainable, as a biofuel, both in, from the biomass and also from the oil pressed from the seeds. Its nutritional aspects, like it's known to be, a superfood, like with the perfect balance of omega-3 and 6 fatty acids. And with food insecurity being an important issue in the world today as it is, hemp protein is going to be important moving forward, especially because hemp also tends to be very drought resistant, and can grow in some more arid areas where other crops may not thrive. So, and then when you're looking at like transitioning fashion to hemp textiles and getting rid of some of the synthetic things, like I personally never thought of a baby wipe or a disinfectant wipe as being plastic, but in reality, that's what it is. So replacing those disposable things that we use every day with something that's biodegradable and produced more sustainably in the first place is going to have a major environmental impact. And kind of the list goes on and on. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, that was great.
why
Thank
I
you.
got into hemp in the first place was that whole like environmental kind of piece of it. So I tend to get excited.
Yeah, I think it's very important to underscore that. And I know we only have 28 minutes left or 18 minutes left in this webinar, and maybe that's a whole other episode, right? So yeah, let's keep moving along here for the next 18 minutes. For building materials, Ray, there's probably some hurdles in promoting hemp as a viable option in the construction industry, but there's also probably some innovative hemp-based building projects or initiatives that your association's involved in, if you could talk about that.
Yeah, I love this question because we've gained so much ground. And so, if a building is going to be built, it starts out as an idea, then you call architects, you call builders, you have everything come together. And then architects like to talk to architects. And so, if you're going to do that and have that design come together, you need RCAT is one that has a building specification. And so, we're able to have that in. RCAT is like the Google for building materials. And so, there's a guide spec in there. The U.S. Hemp Building Association is coming on with gaining its continuing education capabilities to teach and engage with those architects so that as code comes in, and so if you go back several years, there's been that effort to have this come in as a building code to where it's not just some wild idea and something that's crazy, it's an actual appendix that's published in the IRC 2024. Now that's recent as of the past few months. And so that's like today's news going out there. And then when those architects want to pick up today's news and find out what's there, they need to be able to engage. We're able to engage them. And then the supply chains are going forward. Now, the two big things that you need in building are the insurance and the mortgage for especially on the residential side. And so what we're seeing is the insurance and the mortgage companies are very happy to embrace it because you're not doing anything out of the norm, you're insuring something that's got a certificate of occupancy. So that certificate of occupancy is very happy on the side for the insurance and the financing, where we're seeing something that's still a little bit on the regulatory side, and this is more self-imposed on there within, and education will overcome it, and then that's the banking. Like, for example, if I'm going to buy and sell building materials, it's still difficult to get a banking account, you know.
Mm,
And so it's one of those things that insurance companies and banks, they're in the risk business, and we're doing a lot of things to help them reduce their risk so that they know that that's all that it is, and then that risk can be a reasonable underwriting process for what that business activity. So yeah, thanks. And if you got any other follow-up questions on those are some things I'm excited about. Just wanted to give a rocket view overview of it all. So there's a lot of things going on.
great. Thank you for that update. Jonathan, you've kind of already touched on some of the challenges related to product safety and consumer perceptions around that. So I'm wondering how you see this market for consumable cannabinoids evolving in the next few years here.
Well, I think there's two paths. There is a very exciting path that if these products begin to be regulated, I think we're going to see them on the shelves of Walmarts and Targets and other big box stores, leading to a huge boom in the industry and a great opportunity for hemp farmers across the country. Alternatively, if those in Congress who are trying to shut down the industry get their way, we could see a real crash, and that we're very afraid that not only would we see great harm done to the cannabinoid market, but by implication to the hemp and fiber market as well. And so it's really important that these legislative efforts to try to destroy the hemp industry are defeated, and we're at the roundtable working hard every day, meeting with members of Congress and trying to convince them that the answer is not prohibition, it's regulation. Let's regulate, let's not ban these products.
It's great. Thank you for that, Jonathan. Moving along, there are several hemp-focused trade associations, industry associations, and we just have leadership from only 3 of them on this webinar. How do we view getting alignment amongst all of these different trade associations with maybe slightly different goals and missions? And maybe talk about some regulatory, legal policy issues that operators from all these different areas are dealing with, and how to build bridges with regulators at the state and federal levels. Ray, I think you were mentioning banking and insurance, if you'd like to talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, and then those are some things to where, bankers like to talk to bankers, insurance agents like to talk to insurance agents, and they all have their trade associations that they go to. They go to the conference and they socialize those ideas in those networks, and we can reach out to them. And one of the best examples of how this took place or can take place was in an ASTM committee meeting where it was the textile group meeting with the fiber grain group. And the comment was made that it's like your last product is our first product. And then light bulbs just went off over everybody's head. And it's kind of like, we need to talk. And then that's how it gets handed off. But to where we go into their group and into their world and we start going around like a bull in a china shop, we're going to be kicked out. And so that type of liaison effort is something that I'm excited about. And then again, back to kudos to the ASTM for leading the way, but now it's time to go to the other industries and the banking, the insurance associations.
If I can just add to that, obviously I'm ASTM trained all the way, Ray. Thank you as the vice chair, but you called it well. And we do have a banking and finance subcommittee as well that was formed, recognizing similar conversations. And I wanted to try to use that as an opportunity to address one of the questions that came up as well around hemp-friendly banks. We need to all play master translator, right? Whether you're a farmer, manufacturer, a lawyer, a banker, an insurance guy, you've got a different lexicon, but your last product is our first product is so well said, Ray. We all have integral parts in the supply chain. And so ASTM is one of the best places and the only place that I've found where you truly can have, through a 125-year-old process, a venue and a process to engage in that type of discourse so that we can get to, I think, Erica, you said it well, like, terminology and words matter. We need that standard lexicon. Otherwise, we might be just talking over each other because we're not talking about the same thing, even though we're using the same words. So that's especially true in this type of, complex marketplace.
Bethany, I've got
I've
some
got
good news to report. Oh, go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, I've got one more thing to add, and I think this will be a nice segue to connect the fiber grain with the cannabinoid production. And then that's the university and the academic participation. Because if we go in as a trade association, we're obviously advocating and we're, it's like having somebody who's selling you something. It's nice to have the university participation for testing, for product development, for any type of thought that needs to be incubated, having that University of North Dakota doing some testing. There's Texas A&M has hosted things in. They have things that are focused on engineering, architecture, building, as well as the agronomy, the biochemistry, the terpenes, and all of that. And it's really nice to see everything coming together at the academic level. And then that's the comment that I'll make on that, because that's where a lot of synergy happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
I've got some good news to report on this.
All right.
There's an important event every year called NOCO, Northern Colorado hemp event that Morris Beagle puts on. And a year and a couple months ago, he brought together so many of the leading organizations in the space for discussion in terms of what should be our common message on the Farm Bill. What should we be talking about? And it was a great, vibrant discussion. And out of that came an action plan that listed an agenda of things that we all shared. One was the Industrial Hemp Act, its principles that Erica talked about in the beginning. The other is what I'm talking about, regulating CBD and other hemp extracts. And so 33 different organizations joined for that. And now we've been regathered to try to battle against this latest effort to try to ban hemp. So, every day we get more nonprofit organizations. Again, we don't agree on everything. We don't represent necessarily everything in the industry, but there are some common principles that hemp groups agree on. And it's really important because there are groups out there with the name hemp in them that are anti-hemp. There is one particular group that is on the Hill trying to destroy the hemp industry, and they've got hemp in their name. And so that's why it's so important for the rest of us to gather and lock arms and to come up with a common message.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jonathan. Erica, thoughts on trade association and regulatory alignment?
Yeah, honestly, it's complicated, right? Like there have been efforts to unify. And I know that Congress gets extremely frustrated that there's so many different groups and they don't always know who to trust, who to listen to. And I would say to that, where there can be alignment and we can speak with one voice, that is really powerful. But where there's not, like, they need to do their homework and figure out, like, I kind of look at it like the one plant thing, like there is this utopia where, everybody plays nice and talks to each other and that's how it should be. And I hope we do get there. But I don't think we're quite there yet. And I think there's with most of the major organizations, there are kind of specialties that people are, really good at. And, maybe there's some opportunities there to find lanes. But I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But yeah, there are some organizations out there that are actually doing more harm than good. And that's a shame, but they're there. And what do you do? But I think for the most part, most people's intentions are in the right place. And there's just some like legitimate disagreements about what the best path forward is. So I just have faith that if everybody's doing things for the right reasons, that, everybody has their path and it will all lead to a good road.
Awesome. Thank you. We have just a few minutes left before our hour concludes, and I just have a couple more questions I'd like to squeeze in. If you had a magic wand about changes in the industry with regulations, consumer awareness, and market development, what magic would you conjure? Let's start with Ray.
What I would like to see is a mature supply chain connected with capable professionals in the industry. That's architects, builders, subcontractors, engineers, designers, being able to engage and bring something of value to the marketplace. That's mine.
Great, love that. Erica.
Well, me personally, if I had a magic wand, I would have all of cannabis descheduled. I would have the FDA have a full and robust framework to properly regulate all cannabinoid products, and that fiber and grain didn't even need to have permits, and it was just like any other agricultural crop.
Yeah. All right. And Jonathan, magic wand question for you.
Yeah, no, when I testified before Congress last summer about this time, I concluded my remarks by saying that the hemp industry is one of the few industries out in the world that says, please regulate us. And so I said, Congress, please regulate us. Now, in terms of the fiber and grain, we some deregulation would be helpful, but particularly on the cannabinoid side, it's time for Congress to act. And whether it's the FDA or the TTB or some other new organization, we need to have federal consistent regulation across 50 states.
Mm-hmm. Yes, further into that, are there any specific regulatory changes, support mechanisms that you believe would benefit the hemp industry? And how would you suggest policymakers support this vision? Back to you, Jonathan.
Well, hopefully soon we're going to see some legislation that will really outline a regulatory structure for hemp consumable products, keeping them out of the hands of minors, making sure the good manufacturing practices are used, labeling that's truthful, transparent, and doesn't attract children. And then really putting this in the framework of what we normally see when we see dietary supplements or food and beverage products, and there's no reason why hemp can't be treated along those same lines, and it's really now time for Congress to act.
Well said, thank you. And Ray, your thoughts there?
Yeah, and as far as like the things moving forward on the regulatory side, they're not really in our way. There's just some clarifications that are out that. And so we see a lot of opportunities. I was looking in the questions for, different opportunities that are created. There's not that many impediments. Adoption is slow, but it's in motion. And then that is something that will be removed. But, I think it's one of our board members that posed the question about these projects that can be put into where the government is coming out there, and some of these other problems like veterans housing, housing congestion and affordability. These are great showcases. And so it's not so much removing the impediments that's taking place, but also these other ones to where they can be showcased and move forward and actually generate momentum.
Great. Any final thoughts there for you, Erica?
Yeah, I'd just say, I think getting the bifurcation and a legal definition of industrial hemp is going to go a long way in reducing barriers. There'll be a lot of state work to do and getting the best possible regulations that take advantage of the options that they'll have available to them. And on a legislative side, I think that Congress needs to allocate funds to support the studies that are needed for hemp for animal feed, because the reality is, if hemp had not been banned in 1958, when we got the modern ingredient approval process that we have today, hemp would have been grandfathered in just like corn and soy and other feed ingredients. So, I feel like prohibition is what put us behind 80 years, that the government does have some responsibility to help us catch up.
Thank you for that. We have just 1 minute left. I'll start wrapping up, but David, I know we have been managing the questions coming in from pre-reg and Q&A if you wanted to try to squeeze anything in.
I will let this wrap up here. I think I'll just double down on what Erica said too. We didn't even touch upon that. Appropriations. To regulate these products, to do research on these products, we need that other piece of the puzzle, which is, appropriations and funding to add this into the scope, whether it's cannabinoid products, hemp building material, research, you name it. So I think that's a really important point to remind folks of. But with that, we will do our best. There were 16 questions asked during the Q&A in addition to the 20 or so. So we'll do our best to follow up, and hopefully our panelists can support us with just providing some content answers that we can get to the rest of the audience. But this has been amazing. I really appreciate all of you for coming together and talking about this discussion. I think part of the solution really is just having these types of discussions. We need to have these publicly, agree to disagree, and work to find our common ground. And we'll get to the utopian someday that I know is possible.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jonathan, Erica, and Ray for this amazing discussion. And thanks to everyone who attended live. A reminder that past episodes can be found on the GMP Collective's website and our YouTube channel. Please hit that subscribe button and reach out to us at thegmpcollective.com if you'd like to learn more about our services. Thanks again. We will see you next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.